Thank you, Steve, and I appreciate being recognized. Not necessary, but it's important to the realtor community statewide that we are involved in critical decisions like what we are embarking on here in Jacksonville. So it was my pleasure to make those arrangements to make that happen. Tonight's meeting is our last meeting of the community engagement sessions. As Steve's already mentioned, we've gone through 3. This is number 4. This is a culminating event. It's going to build on the hard work and the input of all of you, from everyone at every one of those meetings, as well as from the phone survey that Steve mentioned. What I want to do real quick is go through a brief recap of those first 3 meetings so that everybody has it fresh in their minds what it is we're charged to do tonight. Our facilitation committee met last Wednesday, and we summarized the input received and developed a clear picture of where we are right now. We reminded ourselves that the goal is to take the input received during this process and develop the strongest recommendations for the future. And this recommendation goes to our Board of Education. For those of you who may not have attended all the meetings, we've had 3 primary types of input. A report of the physical and functional needs of the facilities compiled by the architects and educators, input on preferences, goals, and objectives from participants in these 3 sessions prior, and, did I just do that? A scientific study, the phone polling that we did. At community engagement session number 1, we heard the results of a need assessment of our educational facilities. While the district maintains facilities that are safe, we learn that our buildings have old systems, some of them potentially compromising with varying lifespans, and many of our buildings are in need of significant investment to address physical deterioration. This chart lists the total costs estimated by architects to address the physical needs identified in the needs assessment. You'll note that the costs of the high school are significantly higher, but that's because the building is significantly larger. Given the magnitude of these costs, prudent school districts ask themselves and their communities, what's the wisest use of school district funds? And then they work to develop a plan for that community. This chart shows the results of the educational adequacy assessment of our existing facilities. Now, the educational adequacy term means how well our existing facilities meet the needs of teaching and learning. This assessment was completed by the superintendent, by each of the school principals, and BLDD architects using a Council of Education Facility Planners International Guide to School Facility Appraisal. On this chart, you can see how our facilities scored. You'll note that only the high school received a satisfactory grade. All the remaining facilities received a borderline grade, which was between 50 and 70, which means that they don't meet many of the needs for 21st century facilities, and we need a significant amount of renovation and or additions to make them 21st century ready. One of the work activities for the evening, for the first engagement session, for participants was to prioritize a list of the physical needs from the needs assessment results presented earlier in the evening. And each need was to be rated either as a high, a medium, or a low priority. And after completing their work, the community participants, the input we took and culminated these results. As you can see, building infrastructure, building envelope, and energy efficiency were the highest physical needs, again, generated from input from the session. The second work item for that evening was for participants to prioritize the list of functional needs desired for our facilities. Each need, again, rated for high, medium, and low. And again, as you can see, ability to provide technology access, ability to control access, a secure environment, and facility accessibility. These were the highest functional needs to be addressed for our plan in the future. At community engagement session number 2, participants learned about the future of education and how facilities evolving to meet the needs of 21st century curriculum and 21st century instruction. Community participants were asked to select from a list of 21st century attributes that participants felt would be most desirable for future educational facilities. And as you can see, creating an engaging educational environment, creating enhanced technology access, and providing an environment to maximize student services. These were the highest that scored in that survey. And in our last community engagement session number 3, participants were asked which grade levels they believed had the highest priority of need. As you can see, elementary had the highest need from the survey, and the high school had the lowest need from the survey. Participants were also asked how they would prefer to fund a plan to address the needs of our facilities. And candidly, the results surprised us. As you can see here, we had an overwhelming support for a combination of both, which meant a property tax increase. Okay? And we wondered, instead of asking which approach would you prefer, we probably should have asked the question, which approach do you think the community would get behind? At the meeting, participants were shown 11 different master plan scenarios and were asked, select your top 3 choices. This chart shows the results of this chart shows the results of that. The top 2, as you see up there, they were head and shoulders above the rest. They also had something very much in common. These top 2 scenarios both created new facilities for all district students in grades kindergarten through 8. Let me repeat that. They both created new facilities for all district students, kindergarten through 8. In these scenarios, all students in those grades would go to the same facility, eliminating or addressing community member concerns about equity and about unity. When groups reported out in the sessions, many mentioned the desire to unify the community as one of the primary reasons why they selected those scenarios. At our facilitation committee meeting, which was just last Wednesday, we heard the results of a scientific survey, the phone poll. And this was a polling done of Jacksonville community members, of registered voters in Morgan County, to determine the preferences to the issues raised and suggested from here during our previous 3 community engagement sessions. And at this time, I'd like to ask Dr. Rod Wright, president of Unicom ARC, to discuss those results with you.